We are back, and we have Matt Geika. He is
We do.
right next to me. Hello, Matt.
What's up, Brian?
Not much. I just got some sleep myself. I slept for a couple hours before I came in. I was
Lucky you.
yeah,
2 hours, man.
yeah,
That's a
2
lot for
hours.
you.
So
for
that isn't
this
lot.
show.
That is a lot before this show. So usually I just stay up till noon, but I couldn't make it. So Matt, I had a question. Cleveland, they are dubbing themselves the city of champions. Do you think it is too early with one championship in about 50 years to claim that you're the city of champions?
Who said that?
That's what one of the announcers claimed, that they're the
Oh, that
city of
was.
champions now.
I like that call from Mike
Did
Breen
you?
on ESPN last night. He said once again, Cleveland can call itself
Yeah.
the city of champions. And
But,
hey,
but don't you think it's a little soon with, I mean, we're talking 6 Super Bowls, we're talking 4 Stanley Cups, we're talking like 3 in just a few years, or actually 4 in just recent years. I don't know. I think one championship in
well,
the recent
literally,
era.
they are the city of champions, though,
I
right now.
suppose. I suppose.
They can't control what a national broadcaster says. So
I suppose.
I like the call. I will stand by the Mike Breen call. I'm a fan of his work, and I get what you're saying, Brian. But I'm not going to hate on Cleveland today. Let them have their time, and they didn't like the city or the river on fire. The river has been on fire up in Cleveland before, as we all
True.
know, the Cuyahoga, for different reasons. But I wouldn't have
In their
blamed them if
defense,
they'd
though,
done
would
that.
you be surprised if the Monongahela caught on fire?
I think maybe in a bygone era, perhaps 60s or 70s, before the EPA really got things going from that
Sure.
standpoint as far as polluting rivers. I would not have been surprised. We're probably lucky the Mon didn't catch on fire at some point, or the Allegheny, or the Ohio, or the Youghiogheny, or any of those around the area. But what a sports day yesterday with
Yeah.
Cleveland capping it off. I can't believe it, because in the NBA, teams don't come back from down 3-1 in series, let alone a championship series. It's never been done. So full credit to them. And I've always felt a kinship with LeBron James. He's exactly the same age as me. We graduated high school in 03. And he was the first sports star who was either my age or younger. So that was kind of like that first moment where it's suddenly like, oh, wow, I guess I'm out in the real world now. And so is this guy. So I followed his career. I've been a fan, and he took a big chance coming home to try to make things right. And lo and behold, he did it. So much emotion last night after that game, and all of it justified.
Yeah, I'm impressed with him. I'll be honest, I was one of the LeBron haters when he first left Cleveland, and I was feeling for Cleveland. I thought that it was kind of inappropriate the way he left town with the giant TV appearance and everything else. But he's come back. I feel like he's more than made up for
Oh, sure.
for that. So
Yeah, that was terrible. That was awful. It was a big mistake from him
Yeah.
and his PR team, or whoever suggested that. Made for TV. ESPN got boffo ratings from it, but
sure.
in the end, it was a real slap in the face to a community that had helped raise him, and
A community that was also down on its luck. I mean, Cleveland, it's
especially in terms of sports, they're doing okay
Yeah.
these days. They're not quite as far along as we are in reinventing themselves. I feel a kinship with the Rust Belt cities, with your Clevelands
Sure.
or Detroits, and I think those cities and a lot of others can look to Pittsburgh for finding different ways to attract people to town, to keep people in town. Pittsburgh's become such a medical hub. That's been key to that turnaround. But you're having companies like Google invest, and we're talking off the field, off the court, off the ice here. But I think it all applies, and well, any bit of positive emotion and energy can help a city. So I've been up there a couple of times. I don't find it to be as bad as other people say.
their
So,
highways are much nicer.
They are, but they have more space. That's a Midwest city.
Sure.
Pittsburgh has the hills, the rivers, and I may be making excuses, but
Poor planning as well.
yeah, right. I don't think anyone back in the 1940s or 30s thought that Pittsburgh was going to become this size of a city. That's always my thought when I drive through. In Cleveland, they have some room to spread out, so they use that to their advantage. But hey, I'm all on the Cavs bandwagon today.
Yeah, it was a good week for them. They were also rated the #1 metal scene in the United States by MetalInsider.net.
Is that
Pittsburgh,
right?
yeah, Pittsburgh coming in at #3.
So we're close.
So yeah, we're close. Yeah, so we just got to work a little bit harder to knock them out of that as well.
got to get angrier, I think.
That's right. That's
Just
right.
a little bit. We can up the anger quotient too.
Yeah. So what else happened? It was a busy week. We had the U.S. Open here, right in Oakmont, and that was a very controversial, they say, win up to the end. He ended up Dustin Johnson had enough to overcome a penalty, but there was a lot of talk about that, and I thought it was interesting because how rare is it that an open can come to your town and really be overshadowed for most of its time here due to the Stanley Cup playoffs here in Pittsburgh. But I feel like anywhere else it would have been.
It was just tough to build up the anticipation. I
Yeah.
think for an event like that comes around, well, it's on a 9-year cycle now with Oakmont. We had it here in 07, and then this year, and then again it was announced in 2025 it will return to Oakmont. And there wasn't that chance to get the hype machine going. Jason Day, the number 1 ranked golfer in the world, threw out a first pitch at a Pirates game, one that I was covering
Oh, that's cool.
2 Saturdays ago. But with the case of golf, though, you have a chance. You have the practice rounds, and then you have the first couple of rounds, and the first round was essentially washed out by rain last Thursday. But after that, it all builds to that final round, and I feel that by the time we got to the weekend, people were engaged in it. The crowds up there were tremendous. It's a smaller, old-timey country club. It's 100 years old, so tough to get around with that many people up there, and it's very hilly, plenty of high grass and rough to navigate your way through. So anyone who was up there, full marks to you for doing it. It's such a different fan experience, Brian, for golf, and I tried to stay out of the media tent as much as possible over the week because I wanted to experience it as a fan does and stand in the galleries. And you have to pick and choose. You have to strategically plot your spots to go watch. It's not like watching a hockey game or a baseball game or a football game where you have your seats and you just sit there and it's right in front of you. You have to go look for the action, and you have to go look for your favorite players or groups. And that part of it really appeals to me. It's a very old-fashioned feeling. And you mentioned the controversy. Dustin Johnson was just so damn good off the tee and hitting greens. He led the field in driving distance and greens in regulation. The last time anyone did that at a U.S. Open was Tiger Woods in 2000 when he won by 15 strokes. So that tells you how dominant he was from tee to green, and he putted just well enough to win. But the penalty stroke that you referred to, I'm not going to bore your listeners with the details of it, but what was really cool about it was everyone had these, I guess, ear-attached radios, and they were given out at the event. I had one of them. You could listen to the radio coverage. Yes, there is radio for golf.
I did not know that.
Yeah, and very descriptive stuff, and you bounce around the course, you know what's going on. But as word leaked out that Johnson was going to be penalized, most likely after the round, for inadvertently moving his ball on the fifth green, people started to really get behind Dustin and cheer him on, and also jeer the USGA, and which is the United States Golf Association that runs the tournament. But they were just screaming out to some of the officials walking along the fairway, saying, screw the USGA. It was getting pretty heated out there, and a lot of beers, I think, contributed to that as well. It was a hot day, and people getting a little delirious, but such energy and mostly positive at the end as Johnson didn't just hold on, but really pulled away.
Well, one thing I thought was interesting is basically what I had heard listening to the coverage is that it doesn't matter what the intent was when a ball was moved.
Right.
The rule is when the ball moves, that issues a penalty. And honestly, I could see good and bad in that because you look at hockey, for example. If someone gets hurt, they look at the merit and whether they think it was intentional or not. So I mean, we complain about that. So it's weird. You want to judge on someone's intent. I mean, I understand in that situation. I saw the move myself. It clearly was moving it in the wrong direction. Even it wasn't something that really gave him any kind of competitive advantage at all. But do you want to go into a situation where you are making it a judgment call for the officials?
Yeah, the judgment call was. This rule has been changed recently. In fact, it used to be that if you step up behind the ball, if you placed your putter on the ground and the ball moved, then it was an automatic penalty. Now they have some leeway to say, well, did the player cause it to move? It's not truly intent. It's more cause and effect that they're judging there. And I think some people out there got that confused as well. Yeah, the ball moved backwards, but in the USGA's eyes, it doesn't matter which way it moves, just that it did move. Then they have to determine with a preponderance of evidence, and yes, that word was said on the broadcast yesterday. I felt like I was watching Law and Order. So it's more like a civil case than a criminal case. It's not beyond the shadow of a doubt.
Uh-huh.
It's a preponderance of evidence. And so 51% or 50.0001% is all you need to determine that the player caused it to move. He grounds his putter on the side of the ball, takes a couple practice strokes, and then puts the putter behind the ball, or is in the process of doing so, and then it moves. I didn't see enough there to determine, for me, satisfactorily that he was the one who moved it. Those greens they were running so fast yesterday, Brian.
Mm-hmm.
They were cut so tight. The wind was blowing. I could see a ball moving back because he was putting on a slope, putting on an upslope. So for me, I'm not the type to go look for penalties and look for reasons to penalize guys. And if I had one quibble with the way the USGA does its business, I love the way they set up the U.S. Open, but fans aren't out there to watch you issue a penalty stroke. Now, if he did definitely bump it, then I say okay. But for me, there wasn't enough there. I had a problem with the enforcement of the rule, not necessarily how they went about communicating it to him and all of that.
What about the Pirates? They are now, I believe, below 500. Is that correct?
It is extremely correct. Yes, they got swept by the Cubs. 15 games behind the Cubs now with more than half the season to go. So I think we can let that horse run out of the barn in the NL Central. But the pitching's gone downhill. Even the young, promising Jamison Tyone got hit a little bit last night at Wrigley Field, and I'll confess I didn't follow too much of this weekend being busy up at Oakmont. But what I do know from reading the coverage on DKPittsburghSports.com from our Josh Yohe and watching the highlights and all of that, the pitching continues to let them down. I know they're not hitting as well as they did, but at some point the pitching has to do something. And they're on this incredible tailspin in June, and I don't know if they'll be able to pull out of it because they need internal improvements, or maybe a trade is in the works because Neil Huntington has rarely been in this position in the last few years where his team is this far out of contention, at least for a division, and also falling out of a wild card. So maybe that increases his desperation level.
Yeah. All right, Matt, thank you very much. Anything else going on that we need to know about?
Boy, I don't really think so. We'll have the Geick Scott game revved up, that machine rolling again on Friday. So looking forward to being back in the studio. The Pirates are home for 8 games, so they have a chance to at least get a foothold here at PNC, although they'll be playing 2 very high-quality teams in the Giants and the Dodgers. So I'll be back on the beat on Wednesday. I'm having a nice couple of days off here, so glad to start my unofficial weekend here with you, though. Appreciate it.
Absolutely. Enjoy. That's Matt Geica. I am Brian Crawford. You're listening to The River's Edge. Up next, we're going to bring in Heather with the weather, and she's from Cleveland, so we're going to ask her. Yeah.
Heather with the weather. I like that. That
yeah,
sounds
right?
good.
Isn't that cool? So, all right, Heather's next.